Majora's Mask, Chapter 14. The Deku King. Suits fell lightly from the burning walls, and the embers popped and crackled. She struggled to restrain her coughing as heavy smoke filled her chest, though it made her eyes water. The imp floated over the sprawling throne room. Purple fire burned like a dark beacon behind him. He stared at the middle-aged woman, who knelt on the floor before him and trembled terribly. Long red hair covered wide, fearful eyes. She refused to meet the dark mask's stare, keeping them on the ground instead. "But I can feel them cutting right through me," she thought. She finally obeyed his order. The woman fought to keep her arms steady as she pointed off to her right, at a large fish tank against the wall. The Skull Kid rose his arm toward the aquarium, and when the imp closed his fist, the glass shattered. Water spilled onto the floor, bringing it with a clam-like creature with sharp, pointy spikes and a large blue-green egg. The soft egg didn't roll far before it stopped with a wet thud. The clam flung itself across the room, dying in the open air. The Skull Kid flicked his hand out again, and the egg's innards exploded outward. Now only lifeless muck oozed through the spilled water. The imp turned back to the woman, who immediately brought her eyes from the shattered tank back to the floor. "Please," she stammered. "You've destroyed the eggs. Let me live."
"Why should I?"
the Skull Kid asked coldly. He remained floating, arms across his chest. "We didn't do anything wrong!" she exclaimed, finally looking up to show her tears. She was unable to hide her shallow breathing as she talked through the smog. "We did what you said. We got the eggs so we could find the treasure at the temple and split it with you. We didn't do anything against the deal."
"You only found 4 of them, Avail,"
the imp said, calm despite the open purple flames and her cowering. "He doesn't care," Avail thought. "He doesn't care about anything." The pirate lord of the fortress had been reduced to a begging, sniveling girl, but it was either that or die. Fear had replaced pride.
"Besides, there was never treasure at the temple. I wanted you to find all the eggs so I could destroy them. I lied to you."
The words were a blow to her stomach. Avail squeezed her eyes shut to withhold a reaction. "But why did you have to kill us all?" she asked, weaponless and defeated. "We would have cooperated." The Skull Kid looked away, as if not sure how to reply.
"Have you seen the moon recently?"
Avail averted her eyes, gulping. "He's going to kill me." She couldn't stop trembling. Her mind was frantic as she spoke carefully. Yes.
"Have you noticed anything different about it?"
She continued to shake, closing her eyes again as she answered. "Yes." The Skull Kid wouldn't look away.
"And what's different about it?"
"I don't..."
"What's different about it, Avail?"
"It's bigger," she stammered.
"Bigger?"
the Skull Kid mocked. His childish laugh had no warmth. The darkness was thick on his tongue.
"It's closer, not bigger. I'm going to slam it into the clock tower tonight and kill everyone in Termina."
The imp stopped abruptly, as if surprised by a sudden thought.
Why?
Avail screamed.
Why would you do something like that?
The Skull Kid didn't answer, still distracted by some idea. He turned around to face the fire, leaving his back to the pirate. Her eyes darted to the left where a sword lay on the floor a few feet away. Her breath caught in her throat. Avail silently crept in its direction.
That ocarina!
The Skull Kid said aloud. Avail froze, but the imp still hadn't turned. He continued speaking to the fire itself.
Where are they?
Avail crept for the blade, using years of stealth training as her guide. There was blood already on the weapon's point. Avail held her breath when she leapt for the sword. The Skull Kid turned around as her hand circled the handle.
If they...
He stopped short when he saw Avail's newly reclaimed blade lunging for his face. The pirate screamed as she attacked. It was a battle cry.
Ha! Ha!
It was her last hope for survival. The imp threw his arms upward, bringing a wave of purple fire with him. It stopped the blade before it touched the mask, sending Avail hurtling across the room. The pirate collapsed, defenseless yet again. Avail screamed, sprawled out in defeat. She gritted her teeth as she lifted her sword arm. It was scorched black and red, twisting with white-hot pain. The Skull Kid glided across the floor to reach her. He cocked his head to the side, as if curious.
Why?
She screeched again, holding up her burnt hands to protect herself.
Because...
he said.
It's fun.
He moved his arms in a circle, preparing a spell. Avail's eyes widened in horror. The lightning's shadow zapped across the wall as it soared. A high-pitched wail filled the space between his fingertip and his target. Her scream was cut short. Deku Link hopped his last hop across the purple water. He landed on a grassy shore on the cave's other side. As he pulled his feet out of the swamp, he noted the only other landmark beside him, a wooden dock.
You know, it's too bad we didn't get to leisurely sail here,
Tattle said, flying next to Link.
We always have to do things the hard way, don't we?
The poisonous water continued past the dock in a wide stream bordered by rock walls and grass. Tall trees grew from the water. Their tops formed large, red circular platforms instead of leaves, appearing as squishy as the mushrooms. Lily pads and other poison-immune wildlife floated along the water. However, this area's grandest feature was further up the grassy shore from the dock. On the distant rock face, a fortress wall broke the stone with crude wood. It stretched high and offered a doorway at its base, promising to reach beyond this swampy enclosure. Tattle directed him that way.
I believe the Deku Palace is through that doorway, Mr. Deku baby.
Link made sure his hat was secure on his blonde head, but he realized there were no other clothes to fix.
This doesn't feel right.
Link squeaked, observing his wooden body.
I can't go in without clothes on.
He jumped out of his oversized tunic and boots mid-battle so they wouldn't weigh him down. They likely had disintegrated immediately in the purple water.
You have a hat on,
Tattle reminded him, though Link wasn't amused.
Deku Scrubs still wear clothes anyways, Link. I was going to suggest hiding your hat before you went in.
Deku Scrubs are supposed to have a skirt of leaves.
Young ones don't have skirts yet.
Tattle said.
And besides, now that you've given me the opportunity to see a naked Deku Scrub, I can see there's nothing scandalous to even hide with clothes. Humans are among the few with all that nasty stuff. Ugh.
Link scoffed.
Fine, Tattle. I'll take the hat off. It still feels weird going into a palace without clothes on.
Welcome to not being a human,
Tattle said. An idea came to Link as he held his hat uncertainly. He set it and his sword on the grass and then backed away from both. He then grabbed his face where he thought the mask should be.
What are you doing?
Tattle asked.
I want to see if my human form is exactly like I left it.
Link said.
My Deku form still somehow had my damaged tunic and my hat. If I take my mask off, maybe my fixed tunic and bag will come back. Which would mean all of these different forms save whatever outfit I was last wearing. And if that's true, I might be able to hide stuff in each form.
That's really confusing, Link, but I think I get what you're saying. I just hope you're right about still having clothes on when you turn back into a human.
I'm hoping my sword and hat won't disappear, since I'm not touching them. Maybe that's the trick to all this.
I guess there's only one way to find out.
I'm not sure how to actually take it off.
Link said, still grabbing the edges of his face.
How'd Kotake do it?
Well, she sort of poured a bunch of potions on you and rubbed your face until the mask fell off. It was a little creepy, but you were dying, so I wasn't about to complain.
I don't have any potions, though.
Link said, frustrated as he continued to search for the mask.
Maybe you have to visualize it,
Tattle said.
You know, be the mask.
The fairy blinked, and suddenly, a fully clothed, blonde-haired boy replaced the naked Deku scrub in front of her. His repaired green tunic, bag, shield, boots, and scabbard had all returned too. The Deku mask was in his hand, successfully removed. His sword and hat had not vanished with his Deku form, as predicted. They remained resting on the grass at his feet. "It worked!" Link exclaimed, picking up his sword and sliding it into his scabbard. He smiled as he pulled his hat back over his untidy hair.
Don't get too excited. You have to be a Deku head again, remember? The monkey said only scrubs are allowed inside, and you promised me you wouldn't slaughter them all.
Link sighed, holding the Deku mask. I don't like being near the poison water as a human anyways, Link said, looking at the burns on his right hand. He slipped the mask back over his face, and he instantly transformed into a naked Deku scrub again. All his possessions had vanished once more, this time including his sword and hat.
Guess that means your tunic with the scorch mark is gone forever, huh?
Tattle said.
Yeah.
Deku Link said.
Looks like duplicating my clothes was only a one-time thing.
Interesting,
Tattle said.
It's too bad that mask didn't duplicate your ocarina or your sword. That could have been really handy. What is it with magic being so unpredictable and unhelpful?
Hey, I still think it's pretty cool that I can hide anything I want in my different forms,
Link said, heading up the slope and through the fortress wall's doorway.
So, I won't complain.
What if we fly into the sky and you touch the moon while you put your Deku mask on? Might save us a lot of time if we could just hide the apocalypse in a magic mask.
Link shook his head.
It's too big. And besides, what if I accidentally duplicated it like I duplicated my clothes?
Touché, naked baby.
On the wall's other side, the grass ended at a massive purple pond. It wrapped around a fortress on the opposite end and acted as a moat. The fortress bore similar tall wooden walls to the one behind them, completely hiding the palace. The pond, moat, and fortress were enclosed by sheer rocky walls acting as a second level of fortification. Many thin wooden bridges led from the grass across the moat and to the palace entrance. The bridge floated, tied down on either end to prevent it from drifting away.
So, what's the plan here exactly?
Tattle asked.
I'm not sure.
Link said.
Look for the monkey?
How surprising.
Tattle said sarcastically.
This sounds extremely familiar to your last plan. You know, roam around aimlessly until we find Kome.
We found her, didn't we?
Link said, smiling up at her.
I hate you sometimes, Link.
Tattle said, leading the way over the bridge. Link followed behind, noticing the wooden planks dip into the water with his weight. This would not go over well as a human, he thought. The sun continued its journey across the sky. There would not be another one before the moon fell. They soon reached the tall entrance between the fortress walls. 2 Deku flowers blocked the path inside. An adult Deku scrub hopped out of each one as they approached. They had leaves on their heads instead of hair, and Link was positive they had skirts on, though it was hard to tell with their lower halves remaining in their flowers. Neither one of them spoke or moved to let them pass. Their orange eyes stared, threatening in place of speech.
Link
stammered.
Hi?
He suddenly wondered if baby Deku scrubs and fairies were forbidden from entering.
This is the palace of the Deku Kingdom,
The one on Link's right said.
Only those on official business may enter. So what errand does a naked child such as yourself have here? Remember what the king said?
The Deku scrub on the left interrupted. His interjection was acknowledged with a glance before the first one turned back to Link.
Right. You may enter to see the public humiliation of the foolish monkey who angered our king. Follow this hall straight to the royal chamber. Do not enter any other areas whatsoever.
Then they both disappeared into their flowers, allowing Link to step over them into the palace.
See?
Link squeaked, looking up at Tattle.
Easy.
Tattle whispered back in response.
Yeah, but something tells me it's not let any peasant off the street take a monkey day. Rescuing him won't be as easy.
We'll figure something out.
Link whispered back. Beyond the entrance, a narrow passageway led to a cave. Tall fortress walls guided them that way, broken only by 2 small doors. They obeyed the guard's instructions and ignored those doors. Instead, they walked straight into the cavern at the dead end ahead. The palace chamber within was vast. The walls and ceiling were dark stone, and the floor was packed dirt. On the other side of the room sat a dais with an elaborately decorated wooden chair. The 6 Deku scrubs in the room all immediately looked up to spot them. One of them sat in a fancy chair, and he was just as massive as his furniture. He had a bulbous flower-like head, and his arms were draped with vines. A staff topped the flower rested in one of his hands. To the right of the regal Deku scrub stood a tall, slim one with a green handlebar mustache. On either side, 2 ramps were guarded by ordinary Deku scrubs with spears. A fire pit sat in the center of the room, crackling wildly with life. The guards quickly lost interest in Link and Tattle. They resumed dancing in place, and the regal Deku scrub continued basking in the worship. The mustached one's expression quickly drooped with annoyance at the young blonde-haired scrub. Off to the left, there was a cage. It was a massive prison on a raised platform. Wooden bars crisscrossed to prevent any from entering. A tall wooden pole within the bars ran from the ceiling to the floor, and it had a monkey tied securely to it. His feet dangled, struggling furiously at the ropes binding him. That has to be our monkey, Link thought. He went that way first, remembering that he'd been given permission to witness his torture. The mustached Deku scrub watched them from afar. The small white creature continued kicking his legs and feet, but he stopped once he heard the fairy's twinkle. The monkey's eyes only lingered on Tattle for a moment, and then he found the Deku scrub accompanying her.
Get away from me!
The monkey said, speaking much more articulately than his brothers.
Excuse me?
Tattle replied. Link quickly intervened before things got ugly.
We're here to help,
He whispered.
Okay, sure.
the monkey said, trailing off.
That's what the others said before they started throwing rocks at me. Ugh.
Your brother sent us, though.
Link said, wondering how far his high-pitched voice traveled. The monkey's ears perked up.
You took the princess to the temple, and...
The monkey rolled his eyes, struggling against the ropes again.
Just shut up!
The monkey screamed, resuming his furious kicking.
No! You shut up!
Tattle said under her breath. The bars were too close together for even herself to fit through.
Oh, no!
The monkey said.
They keep saying that I kidnapped her. No matter how many times they said it, it's not going to bring the princess back. If they're not careful, the princess will fall victim to the monster. Oogie!
Before Link could respond, a guard grabbed him from behind. The surprise attack successfully grappled him, and he couldn't break free. Link surrendered as the guard dragged him away from the bars. He watched the monkey fade further away. The primate simply hung his head in defeat. Tattle followed as the guard tossed Link at the regal Deku Scrub's feet. The flower-headed scrub now stood from his chair, displaying the full might of his awesome, mighty stature. He bent closer to the child.
I haven't seen your face before.
The large Deku Scrub boomed.
Oh, the king.
Link decided.
Are you visiting?
Link nodded, getting to his feet as Tattle flew beside him. The Deku King continued.
Usually I don't allow the likes of you in my royal chamber, but today is different. We're about to punish the foolish monkey who kidnapped the Deku princess.
He looked up at the ceiling with a large smile, likely relishing in his vision for the punishment to come.
How do you even know he did it?
Tattle asked. When he turned from the ceiling, his smile was gone.
He has insulted this royal family,
the Deku King said.
I'll show him what happens when you do that!
He dismissed the fairy and pointed his staff at Link's face.
And you! Stop talking with that monkey and start harassing him! Take some rocks from the fire pits if you must, but he will suffer. You will not show him any kindness as long as you are in my chamber.
I bet you didn't even give the monkey a chance to prove himself,
Tattle said.
Silence!
The Deku King yelled.
Only Deku may speak in this palace.
But
if you are not here to harass the monkey, then be gone!
The fairy opened her mouth to continue, but the tall, mustached Deku Scrub stepped forward before she could. His wooden skin appeared frail and elderly compared to the others.
I'm sorry, ma'am,
he said softly,
but his beloved princess is missing.
The monarch narrowed his eyes at his servant's intervention.
You deal with these miscreants, butler. I do not have time for them.
The butler nodded, guiding Link and Tattle off to the side of the dais. The Deku King resumed waving his staff in anger at the monkey, simultaneously basking in the glory of his dancing guards.
I apologize,
the butler said.
His temper's only gotten worse since she went missing.
We already know she was missing,
Tattle said.
We want to find a way to stop the monkey's execution. He's innocent. We either have to prove that or break him out.
The butler hardly paid any attention to her words. Instead, his eyes seemed to have noticed something about Link for the first time. He stood transfixed by the young blonde scrub.
Hello?
Tattle said.
You are more reasonable than your king, aren't you? Or do you think the monkey's guilty too?
The butler eventually tore his eyes away from Link.
I'm terribly sorry, he said. Your friend over here seems familiar to me.
Link only furrowed his brow in confusion, so the tall Deku Scrub sighed and dropped the matter.
I don't know if that monkey is guilty or not, but that isn't our top priority. I
fear the princess may be in trouble, just as the monkey claims. But in his current state, the king can't even send troops out to look for her.
So what are we going to do about it?
Tattle asked. I'm not sure there's anything we can't do, the butler said. I'm afraid our king will not listen to reason. We must hope the monkey outlives the king's temper.
We're just going to sit here and hope he changes his mind?
Tattle asked, raising her voice. Link looked to see if the king had noticed, and he had. His expression was an angry warning thrown in their direction. I'm going to sit here and hope he changes his mind, the butler said. I'm just an old servant after all.
Then what are we supposed to do?
Tattle asked. I'm not sure.
Was the princess last seen at the temple?
Link said, looking up at the butler curiously. The butler seemed nervous to reply, but eventually he did. Yes, she was. We assume her and the young monkey went there together. The young princess likely went to investigate the source of the swamp's poisoning. Her father wouldn't let her leave the palace, but one morning, the guards found her missing from her bed. When the guards finally made it to the temple, there was only the one monkey. He claimed she'd been kidnapped.
So they just assumed the other monkeys kidnapped her?
Tattle asked. That about sums it up, yes.
Where is the temple?
Link asked. Tattle instantly spun to face Link.
Link! You promised me we wouldn't go in any temples!
Link only felt a tinge of guilt, but it seemed to be their only option.
We'll be fine, Tattle.
It's outside of the palace, the butler said. You must have passed it on your way here. There's a cave along the outer wall with a Deku flower underneath. If you go through there and hop along the red trees, you should find it. But one cannot enter unless they are a member of the royal family, I'm sorry to say.
That's okay.
Link said.
We'll find a way. Thank you for helping us.
It was my pleasure, the butler said, bowing slightly. Take caution in whatever rescue mission you may attempt.
I will.
Link said, following the path around the fire toward the exit.
What are you doing?
Tattle asked, furious as she followed Link.
We can't go to the temple! You said you wouldn't! And besides, it's like he said, only a member of the royal family can enter!
I'll try not to go inside of the temple, Tattle.
Link reassured her.
Let's at least look around it.
Oh, I don't trust you. I know we'll end up in there trapped in some horrible predicament that will get us almost killed. I, for one, will not be...
The Deku King's booming voice interrupted her from across the room.
Are you leaving without harassing the monkey?
The fairy and Deku Scrub had made it halfway around the fire pit, but they both stopped in reply. Tattle stammered, turning to face the monarch. Link, however, kept his back to the king.
No, you pixie ball,
the king said.
I already told you that your kind aren't welcome here. I'm talking to your friend. You came here. You need to throw something at the monkey.
Link turned around slowly. His orange eyes met the king's narrowed ones from across the fire pit. The flames blazed between them, growing tall enough to almost scrape the ceiling. Link looked off to his left at the monkey. The prisoner stared wide-eyed from the pole, pleading silently for mercy. For the first time, Link noticed the dried blood on his robes and the bruises along his arms. Link took a step forward, aware of all the guards watching too. He didn't say anything, mind racing as he considered his options.
What's the matter?
The Deku King asked.
Are you friends with this monkey? Do you, perhaps, have an ulterior motive? Did you come here so you could find out where he was, to help him?
I was just leaving.
Link said, hardly audible to the monarch across the room.
You didn't answer my question,
the king said. The guards no longer danced, standing ready and stone-faced.
Do I have to arrest you too?
He felt blood rush to his face.
I didn't mean to. I don't know the monkey. I wanted...
Words continued eluding him.
Just wanted to,
the Deku King mocked, slamming his staff into the chair and leaping from it.
Guards! Arrest sire!
The king was cut short, and his wrathful eyes found the butler beside his chair.
Butler,
the king said, standing tall over his servant.
Why did you interrupt me? Because he's a child,
the butler said, maintaining eye contact with his master.
I'm positive he had no intentions of freeing the monkey. He probably didn't even know you had a prisoner on display. He's a commoner. He likely wandered in, like any curious child would. Sir.
The king waited, his eyes intense upon the butler. Guards, monkeys, scrubs, and fairies, all eyes were upon the dais. The tall, thin Deku scrub never averted his gaze.
Fine,
the king said, returning to his chair.
Never return to my chamber again, foolish child. And you may walk free.
Link nodded immediately, taking one step backward and looking at the butler. Some secret was hidden behind those eyes, but he wasn't sure of its nature. And then there was the monkey, his gaze hopeful that these might, in fact, be his rescuers. Link left the chamber in its deathly silence, and the fairy followed.
That was close!
Tattle exclaimed. They were once again in the hallway bordered by tall fortress walls, open to the sky with grass at their feet.
I thought you'd have to take off your mask and fight!
I actually forgot I can change back now.
Link admitted.
I'm so used to being stuck as a Deku scrub.
Well, you can, thanks to the mask salesman.
I should probably stay a Deku scrub as long as I can while I'm here, though. The swamp doesn't seem all that kind to humans.
Hey, isn't that...
Tattle trailed off. Link turned to follow her finger, his eyes squinting in the sunlight peeking over the fortress walls. A small white creature climbed down the wooden barrier toward them, swiftly and silently. They landed in front of Link and Tattle, likely sneaking past the guards at the palace entrance. The monkey beamed as they bounced up and down. Link recognized them as one of the other three.
What are you doing here?
Tattle whispered.
If you could climb in here whenever you wanted, why didn't you free your brother? Okay. No can untie brother without being seen,
the monkey said, their smile fading as they scratched their head.
Well, I guess that makes sense,
Tattle said.
You know, I was surprised your brother actually knew how to talk. It's a pity he's the one who got captured. Okay. Was my brother all right?
The monkey asked, either ignoring Tattle's sarcasm or not understanding it.
Yeah. Your brother was fine,
Tattle answered.
He's hanging in there. Okay. Did you see the entrance to the cage?
The monkey asked, cocking their head to the side.
It's barred. There's no way in. No. Entrance to cage. Yes, entrance to cage. There are thick bars stopping anyone from getting in.
Do you mean another entrance?
Link squeaked. The monkey nodded in excitement.
We know secret route there. Enter secret route from outer garden entrance. Okay. But entrance in tall place. No one can reach it. Need bean from bean cellar. Live beneath palace garden. Okay.
You're saying there's a bean that'll take me up high so I can reach the secret entrance?
The monkey nodded again.
How's a bean supposed to do that?
Tattle asked.
And where'd you say this bean cellar was? Okay. Beneath palace garden.
the monkey repeated.
And how are we supposed to get there?
Oogie, sneak through garden and palace until reach cave. Bean cellar in there.
The monkey pointed behind them to the doorway on the left fortress wall.
Wait a minute.
Tattle said.
You're telling me that we have to sneak by a bunch of Deku scrubs, find this cave you're talking about, and climb underneath the garden?
The monkey yet again nodded.
Why would anyone want to sell beans there? It can't be getting much business.
Me go now,
the monkey said.
Oogie, you understand my meaning? I think so.
Link answered.
What's the secret entrance once we have the bean? On outside palace walls,
the monkey explained as they jumped back on the fortress wall.
Hop across purple water to side of palace.
The monkey scurried away from them back toward the sky.
Got it!
Link said, even as the monkey was already out of earshot.
You know, a thank you would be nice every once in a while.
Tattle grumbled as she turned to Link.
Are you sure you want to do this, Deku Head? It sounds like it's dangerous and a lot of work, and something tells me we're not any closer to finding one of the four.
The monkey could be one of them.
Link said.
Or the princess.
I hope it's not the princess. The king wouldn't be very happy if we found his daughter only to actually kidnap her.
Link didn't have a response, taking a few steps closer to the doorway and looking back at Tattle.
Okay, for the millionth time, I'm going to suggest that we go get Kotake and Kome and return to the masked salesman.
And for the millionth time,
Link said,
I'm going to remind you that it doesn't matter how long it takes us to get Kome and Kotake. As long as we do it before this day is over, they'll still be there before the moon falls. We have the rest of this day in Woodfall, so we should use it to explore. Kome, Kotake, and the masked salesman aren't going anywhere. I don't want to waste the rest of this day by calling it quits now.
It's the safe thing to do, Link,
Tattle reminded him.
Besides, your visions of the Skull Kid kind of scared me. What if we run into him?
We won't run into him. The Skull Kid is at the top of the clock, remember? And he doesn't remember anything. As far as he knows, he hasn't seen us since he cursed me into a Deku scrub.
He wasn't on top of the tower in your visions.
That's because I had those on the second day. We only know that he's at the top of the tower by the final day.
Okay, if you say so, Link.
Tattle finally gave in.
I'll trust you this one last time, okay? Every other time you've convinced me to do something, it's turned out bad.
This time's different,
Link said, giving his most innocent look.
Yeah, like you've never said that before,
the fairy said, rolling her eyes.
Come on, let's go find the magical beans.
The sun had almost reached its zenith, shining fiercely on the remaining inhabitants of Clocktown. Most had left. The streets were empty, save for the few who dared challenging the moon's authority. The Skull Kid watched everything while standing atop the city's western wall, observing the district's sloping walkway. He saw no one except for the teller at the banking stall, who was too busy counting rupees to notice the masked imp staring at him.
They're not here,
the Skull Kid said softly.
Where are they? Search the town. But where would they go?
The imp thought.
They have no friends here. They rest in the hotel. Go there.
The Skull Kid smiled behind the mask. He lifted off the town wall and flew above South Clocktown. The carpenters paid no attention as he glided to the eastern district. Anju looked sadly at the mess on her desk. She folded papers to pack them away, put them in drawers, or merely dropped them in a waste bin. Her short red hair was well kept, as was her blue skirt and vest, but she didn't feel that way as she emptied the front desk. I feel alone, she thought. She lifted Cafe's letter and read it yet again. The words hadn't changed, and her love wasn't any closer. I need a break, she told herself. She left to follow the hallway behind her desk. Make some soup. Clear my head. Anju wiped the fatigue from her eyes as she rounded the corner to go upstairs, but she froze halfway. The lobby was in view again, and a stranger stood in the middle of it. He was a small child with frayed clothing and a tall hat. The mask hiding his face stood out the most. It was heart-shaped and mostly purple. 2 spikes came from the top, acting almost like horns. Its eyes were the oddest part, though. 2 orange orbs. The masked child merely stood in the middle of the lobby, staring at her. Anju's body had instinctively stiffened in terror. Don't be silly, she thought, relaxing her stance. It's just a child. However, she hadn't heard the front door open or close, nor had she heard any steps on the carpeted floor. The child had appeared out of nowhere, and he hadn't said anything. Anju took a step toward him. Hello, she said. She knew that her mother hadn't returned with her grandmother. She was alone in the hotel. The masked child did not respond. She took in a deep breath, trying to appear calm. Welcome to the Stockpot Inn. Do you have a reservation? The masked child took several slow, soft steps across the green carpet. The eyes of the mask never left hers. Anju took a step backward, putting her hand back on the railing. The imp stopped a few feet from her, neck craned back to meet her eyes. The two said nothing for what felt like an eternity. She found it hard to turn away from the mask.
Have you seen a blonde child in a green tunic with a fairy?
The child finally asked, in a voice not nearly as threatening as his stare. Anju opened her mouth to answer, but she hadn't drawn enough breath to respond. She swallowed, parting her lips to try again. No, I don't think I have. Are you looking for them? What's the boy's name?
I didn't say the child was a boy,
the imp said immediately. His childish tone vanished. Anju's heart sank and the fear bubbled deep within her, causing her fingers to tremble. Boy, she thought. Why did I assume boy? I'm sorry, she stammered. The mask wouldn't look away. Is this person your friend? What's, his or her name? Anju waited for a response, frozen in place otherwise. Go away, please, just leave. The masked child cocked his head to the side as if curious. He lifted his hands, and Anju gasped. But the child lowered his arms abruptly.
Wait, I remember now. I watched them. They left through the southern gate.
And then the masked imp turned around, walked across the lobby, opened the door, and left. Anju couldn't move. She watched the closed door, as if expecting him to return.